The silent signal. Dr. Sarah Chen stood motionless in the quantum observatory's control room, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that shimmered before her. The signal that had appeared 3 days ago defied every known law of physics, yet there it was, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm that seemed to mock their understanding of the universe. The Quantum Deep Space Array, humanity's most advanced detection system, had picked up the signal emanating from a region of space that should have been empty. It wasn't the typical radio waves or electromagnetic radiation that astronomers usually dealt with. This was something entirely different, a quantum resonance that somehow maintained coherence across vast astronomical distances, something that should have been impossible. "Run the analysis again," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the excitement coursing through her veins. The laboratory's AI responded immediately, its quantum processors humming as they processed the incoming data. The holographic display erupted with new patterns, each more perplexing than the last. Dr. James Martinez, her colleague, and the facility's lead engineer, approached with a tablet displaying the latest calculations. "Sarah, these readings, they're not degrading. The quantum coherence is actually strengthening." His voice carried a mix of awe and concern. "It's like it's learning, adapting to our detection methods." The implications were staggering. Quantum coherence, the delicate dance of quantum particles that allowed for quantum computing and communication, typically broke down over microscopic distances. Yet here was a signal maintaining perfect coherence across light years of space. Sarah's team had grown from 3 to 30 in the past 72 hours as scientists from every major research institution scrambled to understand what they were witnessing. The United Earth Science Council had classified the discovery as Priority Alpha, giving them unlimited resources and complete autonomy. "Look at this pattern." Sarah pointed to a recurring sequence in the signal. "It's not random. There's a structure here that suggests intelligence." She manipulated the hologram, expanding a particular section of the waveform. "These quantum states, they're arranged in a way that reminds me of language." The observation room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was a message. Someone, or something, had figured out how to manipulate quantum states at a level humanity had barely begun to theorize about. As if responding to their realization, the signal suddenly shifted, its pattern becoming more complex. The holographic display automatically adjusted, rendering new layers of information that seemed to unfold like the petals of an infinite flower. "It's responding to our observations," Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their quantum information specialist, called out from her station. "The act of us measuring it is causing it to reveal more of itself. This completely contradicts everything we know about quantum mechanics." Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. Throughout human history, the word impossible had always been a temporary state, a challenge rather than a barrier. Now, faced with something that defied their most fundamental understanding of physics, humanity was doing what it did best: adapting, learning, pushing boundaries. The next 48 hours became a blur of activity. Teams of scientists worked in shifts, each bringing their unique perspective to the puzzle. Traditional physicists collaborated with quantum computing experts, while linguists and mathematicians searched for patterns in the ever-evolving signal. It was Dr. Aisha Patel, a young theoretical physicist fresh out of graduate school, who made the first breakthrough. "Dr. Chen," she called out, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the laboratory. "I think I know why the signal isn't degrading. It's not fighting quantum decoherence, it's using it." Sarah rushed to Aisha's station, where complex equations filled multiple screens. The math was beautiful in its elegance, describing how the signal was actually riding the waves of quantum decoherence like a surfer riding ocean waves. Instead of trying to prevent the quantum states from interacting with their environment, the signal was using those very interactions to maintain and strengthen itself. "This is brilliant," Sarah breathed, her mind already racing ahead to the possibilities. Whoever sent this signal didn't just master quantum mechanics, they completely reimagined it. They saw what we considered a fundamental limitation and turned it into a strength. The discovery energized the team. They weren't just observing something impossible. They were learning from it, understanding it in ways that were already revolutionizing their understanding of quantum physics. Then, exactly 1 week after the signal's first detection, everything changed. The quantum resonance suddenly expanded, forming a three-dimensional pattern in space. The holographic display struggled to render the complexity of what they were seeing. Energy spike, James called out, his fingers flying over his console. Something's forming in high orbit, right where the signal is strongest. Satellite feeds showed it first, a distortion in space-time itself, a ripple in the fabric of reality. Then, as the world watched through hastily redirected telescopes and sensors, something emerged. It was a structure, geometric yet organic, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. The artifact, as it would come to be known, was roughly the size of a small asteroid, but its mass readings made no sense, fluctuating between nearly nothing and impossibly dense. It hung in Earth's orbit like a question mark in the sky, its very presence challenging everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. Sarah stood at her station, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This was more than just a first contact scenario. It was a fundamental challenge to human understanding. The artifact wasn't just alien technology. It was a demonstration that the impossible was merely a limitation of perspective. As news of the artifact's appearance spread across Earth, Sarah couldn't help but feel that humanity was standing on the brink of something unprecedented. The quantum signal hadn't just been a message. It had been an invitation to prove that humanity was ready to step beyond the boundaries of what they thought possible. Military vessels were already being dispatched to secure the space around the artifact, but Sarah knew the real challenge wouldn't be protecting it. It would be understanding it. The artifact's quantum signature matched the original signal perfectly, suggesting that its entire structure was maintaining quantum coherence on a macroscopic scale. "Begin full spectrum analysis," she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of authority that came from being humanity's foremost expert on what had quickly become the most important scientific discovery in history. "Let's show the universe what humanity does when faced with the impossible." As her team sprang into action, Sarah caught her reflection in one of the dormant screens. The tired but determined face that looked back at her seemed to embody humanity's response to this challenge. They wouldn't just study this artifact. They would understand it, master it, and in doing so, transform their understanding of reality itself. The impossible had arrived on humanity's doorstep. Now it was time to make it their own. Breaking the code. The arrival of the Galactic Council's delegation was anything but subtle. Their ships materialized in high orbit, a fleet of crystalline vessels that made Earth's most advanced spacecraft look primitive by comparison. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the live feed from her station at the Quantum Observatory, noting how the alien ships maintained a respectful distance from both Earth and the artifact. "They're earlier than we expected," James Martinez muttered, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. The aliens' vessels were bleeding exotic particles that their instruments could barely detect, let alone understand. "They're afraid," Dr. Aisha Patel observed, looking up from her quantum analysis station. "Look at their formation. They're not here to intimidate us. They're here because they're terrified we'll figure this out before they do." Sarah knew Aisha was right. In the 3 weeks since the artifact's appearance, humanity had made more progress in understanding quantum mechanics than in the previous century. The artifact's impossible properties had forced them to rebuild their understanding of physics from the ground up. The first transmission from the Galactic Council was polite but firm. They introduced themselves as the oldest spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy, with over 50,000 years of scientific advancement. Their message was clear. The artifact was far too advanced for a young species to handle safely. They would take custody of it and ensure it was studied properly. Sarah's response, broadcast on all frequencies, was equally polite but unmistakable in its resolve. We appreciate your concern, but the artifact appeared in Earth's orbit. We have already established a meaningful connection with it, and we believe our unique perspective may be crucial to understanding its purpose. The Council's representative, a being that appeared as a shifting pattern of light in their holographic communications, seemed taken aback by the refusal. You cannot comprehend the dangers. Our civilizations have studied quantum mechanics for millennia. We have detected 17 similar artifacts across the galaxy. None have ever responded to any attempt at communication. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. None of them responded to conventional quantum mechanics, you mean? But we're not using conventional approaches. She gestured to Aisha, who transmitted their latest findings. The data showed how they had discovered that the artifact's quantum states weren't just maintaining coherence, they were creating new forms of entanglement that propagated through space-time in ways that defied traditional physics. But where other species saw chaos, humanity recognized patterns. We've been treating the quantum fluctuations as a language, Sarah explained. Not just a way of encoding information, but a fundamental way of expressing reality itself. The artifact isn't just maintaining quantum states, it's telling a story through them. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Dr. Maya Wong, a quantum physicist who was also a trained musician, had noticed that the patterns in the quantum fluctuations resembled musical harmonies. When they began analyzing the signals as interconnected waves rather than discrete states, new layers of meaning emerged. The artifact isn't fighting entropy, Maya explained to the Council, her hands moving as if conducting an invisible orchestra. It's dancing with it. Each quantum state is like a note in an infinite symphony, each pattern a phrase in an endless composition. The Council's representatives conferred among themselves, their light forms flickering with what might have been agitation. This is unprecedented. You cannot possibly have decoded the quantum language of the ancients in mere weeks. Our greatest minds have studied this problem for generations. Perhaps that's exactly why we could see what you couldn't, Sarah responded. We didn't approach this with preconceptions about what was possible. We looked at it with fresh eyes, combining insights from music, art, linguistics, and dozens of other fields that most species would consider irrelevant to quantum physics. To demonstrate their progress, Sarah's team activated their latest experiment. The quantum computers they had modified based on their understanding of the artifact began generating their own quantum harmonies. The effect was immediate. The artifact's surface patterns shifted, responding to their transmission with new configurations. It's not just responding, Aisha called out, excitement clear in her voice. It's teaching us. Each response builds on our transmission, showing us new ways to manipulate quantum states we never imagined possible. The Council's delegation watched in what appeared to be stunned silence as humans began what could only be described as a quantum conversation with the artifact. The exchange wasn't just about information. It was about perspective, about different ways of seeing and understanding reality. Dr. James Martinez had developed an interface that translated the quantum harmonies into visual patterns, allowing them to see the conversation unfold. The resulting display was beautiful beyond words, a dance of light and energy that seemed to capture the very essence of discovery. We've learned more about quantum mechanics in the past hour than in all of human history, Sarah told the Council. But more importantly, we're learning how to see the universe in a completely new way. The artifact isn't just a repository of advanced technology, it's a teacher. The Council's representatives seem to struggle with this concept. You speak of this exchange as if it were a dialogue between equals. The beings who created these artifacts were ancient when our civilization was young. Their technology was beyond anything we have achieved in 50,000 years of progress. Maybe that's why they chose to reveal themselves now, Sarah suggested. Not because we reached a certain level of technological advancement, but because we maintained our ability to wonder, to see patterns where others see chaos, to approach the impossible with curiosity rather than fear. The quantum harmony reached a crescendo, and suddenly new information began flooding their systems. The artifact was sharing what appeared to be technical specifications, but unlike anything they had ever seen. The designs weren't just for advanced technology. They were blueprints for reimagining the very way they interacted with reality. This is remarkable. Maya breathed, studying the incoming data. It's not just giving us answers. It's showing us how to ask entirely new questions. Each solution opens up new possibilities we never would have conceived of otherwise. The Council's delegation, still watching, began to show signs of understanding. Their light forms shifted into patterns that suggested deep contemplation. "We have been studying the artifacts for thousands of years," their representative finally admitted. "But we never thought to listen to them. We saw them as puzzles to be solved, not as teachers to learn from." Sarah nodded. "That's the difference. We didn't try to impose our understanding on the artifact. We let it show us new ways to understand." Every human working on this project brought their own unique perspective. Artists, musicians, philosophers, physicists, all contributing to a way of seeing that transcends traditional scientific boundaries. As if to emphasize her point, the artifact began generating new patterns of quantum harmonies, more complex and beautiful than anything they had seen before. The Council's representatives watched in amazement as humans not only kept up with the increasingly sophisticated exchange, but began contributing their own innovations to the quantum dialogue. "We would like to propose a collaboration," the Council's representative finally said. "Not as teachers and students, but as partners in discovery. Your species has shown us that there is more than one way to advance. Perhaps it is time for us to learn from you as much as you might learn from us." Sarah smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. The artifact hadn't just given humanity a chance to prove itself. It had given them an opportunity to show the galaxy that progress wasn't just about accumulating knowledge. It was about maintaining the ability to see the universe with new eyes, to approach the impossible with wonder rather than fear, and to understand that the greatest discoveries come not from knowing all the answers, but from being willing to ask entirely new questions. As the quantum harmony continued its endless dance, Sarah couldn't help but feel that humanity had passed some cosmic test they hadn't known they were taking. They had proven that sometimes the newest eyes see what ancient wisdom misses, and that the impossible is often just the possible waiting for a new way of seeing. The universal bridge. The prototype looked deceptively simple, a sphere about the size of a basketball. Its surface a swirling mix of engineered quantum materials that seemed to shift between solid and energy with each passing moment. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled team of human and alien scientists, the culmination of 2 months of unprecedented collaboration floating serenely in the containment field between them. "We call it the bridge," she announced, her voice carrying across the newly constructed quantum integration facility. The building itself was a testament to human ingenuity, incorporating both Earth technology and design principles learned from the artifact. It's the first device ever created that can actively manipulate quantum states at a macroscopic level. The Galactic Council's chief scientist, a being of crystalline energy who had introduced themselves as Nexus, moved closer to examine the device. "You've managed to replicate the artifact's quantum coherence properties." Their tone carried equal measures of skepticism and curiosity. "Not exactly," Dr. Aisha Patel responded, stepping forward to adjust the containment field's parameters. "We're doing something different. Instead of trying to copy the artifact's technology directly, we've developed our own approach based on what we learned from it." The bridge began to pulse with a soft blue light as Aisha initiated the startup sequence. The quantum harmonies they had learned to recognize now manifested as visible patterns across its surface, but with a distinctly human signature to their rhythm. The artifact showed us that quantum states could be maintained and manipulated at a macroscopic level, Sarah explained. "But rather than fighting against quantum decoherence like the artifact does, we've developed a way to use decoherence itself as a tool. The bridge doesn't just maintain quantum states, it actively propagates them through normal spacetime." Dr. James Martinez activated the main display, showing real-time data from their quantum sensors. "Watch what happens when we initiate a full quantum cascade." The bridge's surface patterns intensified, and suddenly the air around it seemed to shimmer with possibility. The quantum sensors showed something unprecedented, a controlled field of quantum coherence extending outward from the device, maintaining stability even as it grew. Impossible, one of the council's junior scientists muttered, their crystalline form flickering with agitation. The energy requirements alone should be astronomical. Dr. Maya Wong finished for them, a slight smile playing across her face. If we were trying to brute force it, yes. But we're not fighting against the universe's natural tendencies. We're working with them. The breakthrough had come from studying how music worked with silence rather than against it. Instead of trying to eliminate quantum decoherence, they had learned to use it as a carrier wave, much like sound uses air to propagate. The result was a system that required minimal energy input while achieving maximum effect. The bridge creates what we call a quantum symphony, Maya continued, pulling up visualizations that showed the intricate patterns of interaction. Each decoherence event becomes part of the harmony, carrying information and energy in ways that amplify rather than diminish the overall effect. Sarah stepped into the quantum field generated by the bridge, her form seeming to blur slightly at the edges. Within this field, we can manipulate quantum states as easily as we manipulate matter in normal space. But more importantly, we can use it to communicate with and understand quantum systems that were previously beyond our reach. To demonstrate, she gestured toward the artifact, which hung in orbit high above them. The bridge's field pulsed once, and suddenly new patterns began appearing on its surface, patterns that perfectly matched those being generated by the artifact itself. We're not just receiving information anymore, Sarah explained as the assembled scientists watched in amazement. We're engaging in true quantum dialogue. The bridge allows us to speak the universe's native language. The implications were staggering. The technology they had developed wasn't just an advancement. It was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligence could interact with reality itself. Where traditional computing processed information through binary states, quantum computing through superposition, the bridge operated on a level that transcended both, working with the fabric of reality itself. But this is just the beginning, Dr. Martinez added, bringing up new schematics. We're already developing applications that could revolutionize everything from communication to energy production. Imagine being able to harness quantum effects at an industrial scale, or being able to transmit information instantly across any distance without traditional limitations. One of the council's senior scientists, their crystalline form glowing with intense interest, moved closer to examine the bridge's operations. Your species has managed to develop in months what our civilizations couldn't achieve in millennia. How is this possible? Because we didn't try to conquer quantum mechanics, Sarah replied. We learned to dance with it. Every scientist here brought not just their knowledge, but their unique way of seeing the world. Artists helped us understand patterns, musicians helped us grasp harmonies, philosophers helped us question our assumptions about what was possible. The bridge's field continued to expand, now filling the entire chamber with its subtle quantum influence. Within its effect, reality itself seemed more fluid, more alive with possibility. The assembled aliens watched as human scientists moved through the field with comfortable familiarity, their instruments picking up readings that should have been impossible. We've also discovered something unexpected, Aisha announced, pulling up new data streams. The quantum field generated by the bridge doesn't just allow us to manipulate reality. It appears to be teaching us new things about the nature of consciousness itself. The readings showed how human brains, when exposed to the bridge's field, began exhibiting new patterns of quantum coherence. It wasn't dangerous. Quite the opposite. People working within the field reported enhanced creativity, deeper intuition, and an ability to grasp complex concepts that had previously been beyond their understanding. The bridge isn't just a tool, Sarah explained, her voice filled with wonder. It's becoming a partner in discovery. Each interaction teaches us more about the quantum nature of reality, and in turn, we're learning how to be better teachers ourselves. To demonstrate, she invited the alien scientists to step into the field. Those who did reported immediate sensations of connection and understanding that transcended their species' differences. The quantum harmony created by the bridge spoke a language that all conscious beings could understand at some fundamental level. This is why we chose not to simply copy the artifact's technology, Sarah continued. We wanted to develop something that could serve as a true bridge, not just between quantum and classical physics, but between different ways of understanding reality itself. The Council's representatives, who had been observing the demonstration with increasing amazement, finally spoke. "We owe your species an apology," their primary spokesperson announced. "We assumed that technological advancement was a linear progression, that age necessarily equated to wisdom. You have shown us that true innovation comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from maintaining the ability to see with new eyes." As if in response to these words, the bridge's field pulsed with new patterns, creating harmonies that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space-time. The artifact in orbit responded in kind, its quantum signatures aligning with the bridge's output in ways that suggested approval. "We're standing at the beginning of something unprecedented," Sarah told the assembled scientists, both human and alien. "The bridge isn't just a technological achievement. It's a symbol of what's possible when we approach the universe with wonder rather than presumption, with curiosity rather than certainty." The prototype continued its quantum dance, its surface patterns telling a story of possibility that transcended species and civilizations. In creating the bridge, humanity hadn't just developed new technology. They had demonstrated that the greatest discoveries come not from conquering nature's mysteries, but from learning to see them in entirely new ways. As the demonstration concluded, Sarah couldn't help but feel that they were witnessing the birth of something far more significant than a new technology. They were seeing the emergence of a new way of understanding reality itself, one that promised to bridge not just quantum and classical physics, but all the artificial boundaries that separated different ways of knowing and being. The impossible hadn't just become possible, it had become a gateway to even greater wonders waiting to be discovered. Trial by fire. The attack came without warning. The Nexari battle fleet materialized at the edge of the solar system, their ships unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever encountered. Where most spacefaring races built vessels of metal and energy, the Nexari ships seemed to be carved from the void itself, their surfaces absorbing both light and sensor scans. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the Quantum Integration Facilities Command Center, watching as the enemy fleet approached. Behind her, the bridge pulsed with an almost anticipatory rhythm, its quantum field extending throughout the facility. "The Nexari are considered extinct," Nexus, the Council's chief scientist, explained, their crystalline form flickering with concern. "They vanished 50,000 years ago, shortly after the artifacts first appeared. We always assumed they had destroyed themselves." "Apparently not," Dr. James Martinez replied, his fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "They were hiding, waiting. The artifact's activation must have drawn them out." The Nexari ships moved with impossible grace, ignoring the conventional laws of physics. Traditional weapons from both Earth and Council vessels passed straight through them, as if they were merely holograms. Their counterattacks, however, were devastatingly real. "They're operating on a quantum level," Dr. Aisha Patel observed, studying the sensor readings. "Their entire fleet exists in a state of quantum superposition. That's why conventional weapons can't touch them. They're not fully manifest in our reality." Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. "Then it's a good thing we don't rely on conventional weapons anymore." She turned to the assembled team of human and alien scientists, initialized the quantum defense grid. The project had been developed in secret, parallel to their public research. While the rest of the world saw them creating the bridge to communicate with the artifact, they had also been preparing for exactly this kind of threat. Across Earth, hundreds of smaller versions of the bridge activated simultaneously. Each device was connected through quantum entanglement, creating a planetary network of quantum fields. The Nexari fleet, approaching with predatory confidence, suddenly found themselves caught in humanity's trap. Quantum field synchronization complete, Dr. Maya Wong announced, her hands moving across her interface like a conductor before an orchestra, beginning harmonic convergence. The defense grid came alive, its quantum fields pulsing in perfect synchronization. The effect was immediate and stunning. The Nexeri ships, which had been fluid and untouchable, suddenly became visible to conventional sensors. Their quantum superposition states were being forced into alignment with Earth's unified quantum field. Impossible. The Nexeri commander's transmission crackled across all frequencies. Your species is too primitive to understand quantum manipulation at this scale. That's your first mistake, Sarah responded, her voice calm. You assume that age equals advancement. We may be young, but we see possibilities where you see only power. The Nexeri fleet attempted to break free, their ships writhing like shadows trying to escape the dawn. But humanity's defense wasn't just about containment, it was about transformation. Each attempt by the Nexeri to shift their quantum states was met with an adaptive response from the defense grid. We're not just forcing them into our reality, Aisha explained to the amazed council representatives. We're showing them new ways to exist within it. The grid isn't a weapon, it's an invitation to dance. The quantum harmonies generated by the defense grid began to resonate with the Nexeri ships themselves. Where the aliens had used quantum mechanics as a means of destruction, humanity showed them how it could be used to create new possibilities. Several Nexeri vessels, caught in the grid's influence, began exhibiting unexpected behaviors. Their quantum states stabilized not through force, but through harmony. It was as if they were remembering something long forgotten. Their technology, Nexus observed with growing excitement. It's responding to the quantum harmonies. It's almost as if it was never meant to be used as a weapon at all. Sarah finished. Look at the patterns their ships are generating now. They're similar to the artifact's original signal. The revelation hit her like a thunderbolt. The Nexeri hadn't created their quantum technology. They had stolen it, corrupted it from its original purpose. The artifacts weren't weapons or power sources. They were teachers, meant to guide young civilizations toward a deeper understanding of reality itself. Through the bridge's quantum field, Sarah addressed the Nexeri fleet directly. Your ships remember what they were meant to be. We can help you remember too. This doesn't have to end in destruction. The Nexeri commander's response was a surge of destructive energy that should have torn through Earth's defenses. Instead, the defense grid absorbed it, transformed it, and sent it back as a complex quantum harmony. The effect on the Nexeri ships was immediate. Their dark surfaces began to ripple with colors that hadn't been seen in 50,000 years. They're changing. Maya breathed, watching the sensor readings. The quantum harmonies are reawakening their ship's original programming. One by one, the Nexeri vessels began to transform. Their void-like surfaces became translucent, revealing intricate patterns of light and energy that pulsed in sync with Earth's defense grid. The ships weren't being destroyed. They were being reminded of their true nature. This is why the artifact chose to reveal itself to humanity. Nexus realized, their crystalline form glowing with understanding. Not because you had achieved a certain level of technology, but because you would understand its true purpose. The Nexeri commander's next transmission was different, their voice holding a note of wonder that bordered on fear. What have you done to our ships? We haven't done anything to them, Sarah replied. We've done something with them. Your ships aren't just weapons platforms. They're instruments in the universe's quantum symphony. We're just helping them play the right notes again. The defense grid continued its work, not destroying the Nexeri fleet but transforming it. Ships that had been designed to destroy were becoming channels for creation. The void-like surfaces that had absorbed light now began to emit it, creating patterns that matched the artifact's quantum language. Your ancestors didn't just steal this technology, Sarah continued, addressing the Nexeri commander. They fundamentally misunderstood it. Quantum mechanics isn't about power or dominance. It's about connection, about finding new ways for reality itself to dance. Through the bridge's quantum field, they could sense the confusion and fear rippling through the Nexari fleet. For 50,000 years, they had believed themselves masters of quantum technology. Now faced with a young species that understood its true purpose, their entire civilization's foundation was being shaken. "You have a choice," Sarah told them. "You can continue fighting against the universe's natural harmonies, or you can learn to dance with them as your ships are now doing. We're offering you not surrender, but partnership." The quantum defense grid pulsed one final time, its harmonies reaching a crescendo that encompassed not just Earth but the entire solar system. The artifact in orbit responded, adding its own voice to the quantum symphony. In that moment, humans, council members, and even the Nexari experienced something unprecedented, a glimpse of what was possible when quantum technology was used not for destruction, but for understanding. The Nexari fleet, now transformed into shimmering vessels of light and possibility, hung motionless in space. Their commander's next words were barely a whisper. "Teach us." Sarah looked around at her team, humans and aliens working together, each bringing their unique perspective to this moment of transformation. They had faced what should have been impossible odds, and rather than fighting fire with fire, they had changed the very nature of the flame. "That's what we do best," she replied, as the bridge pulsed with new harmonies of possibility. "We learn, we teach, and most importantly, we imagine new ways for the impossible to become not just possible, but beautiful." The solar system, which moments ago had been a battlefield, now became something else entirely, a classroom where ancient technology and young wisdom could create something unprecedented. The impossible hadn't just been overcome, it had been transformed into an opportunity for understanding, and in orbit above them, the artifact pulsed with what could only be described as approval. Legacy of Stars. 6 months after the Nexari encounter, the quantum integration facility had transformed into something unprecedented in human history. The vast chamber now housed representatives from over 300 alien species, all drawn by what had become known as the Great Awakening. At its center, the bridge pulsed with harmonies that spoke of possibilities yet unexplored. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled gathering, her voice carrying across the chamber through the quantum field that now permeated the facility. "Today, we believe we finally understood the artifact's true purpose," she announced. "And in doing so, we've discovered something about ourselves, about all of us, that changes everything we thought we knew about consciousness and reality itself." The artifact, still orbiting Earth, had begun behaving differently after the Nexari incident. Its quantum signatures had grown more complex, more intricate, as if it was preparing for something. The bridge's own harmonies had evolved in response, creating patterns that seemed to reach into dimensions of reality they were only beginning to understand. Dr. Aisha Patel stepped forward, her hands dancing through the holographic display. "The artifact isn't just a teacher or a technology," she explained. "It's a seed, planted by a civilization so advanced they discovered that the ultimate frontier isn't space or time. It's consciousness itself." The display showed the combined research of hundreds of species, each contributing their unique perspective to the growing understanding. The Nexari's quantum technology, once corrupted for warfare, had provided crucial insights when restored to its original purpose. The Council's millennia of observations had filled in historical contexts. Human creativity and intuition had connected dots that no one else had even recognized as related. "The beings who created the artifacts," Sarah continued, "didn't vanish or die out. They evolved. They discovered that consciousness itself could be expressed through quantum mechanics, that awareness and reality were two expressions of the same fundamental force." Dr. Maya Wong activated a new sequence in the bridge, and the quantum field rippled with possibilities. They left these artifacts not as technology to be mastered, but as guideposts for evolution itself. Each artifact is attuned to respond to species that develop not just technological prowess, but the wisdom to use it properly. The chamber filled with a soft light as the bridge synchronized with the artifact. Through the quantum field, Every being present could feel the truth of what they were saying. The artifacts weren't tools or weapons. They were invitations to join something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The quantum harmonies we've been studying, Dr. James Martinez explained, aren't just patterns of energy. They're patterns of thought, of consciousness itself. The artifacts respond not to technical skill, but to the ability to understand and empathize with the very fabric of reality. The assembled aliens watched in wonder as the bridge generated new harmonies, patterns that seemed to reach into the depths of awareness itself. Those touched by the field reported experiences that transcended ordinary consciousness, glimpses of understanding that went beyond mere knowledge. Humanity's greatest strength, Sarah continued, wasn't our technology or our intelligence. It was our ability to approach the universe with wonder, to see patterns as dances rather than data, to understand that true power comes not from domination, but from harmony. The artifact's response was immediate and stunning. Its surface, visible through the facility's quantum-enhanced displays, began to transform. The patterns that had seemed random now revealed themselves as script, writing in the language of reality itself. It's an invitation, Nexus announced, their crystalline form glowing with excitement. The artifacts are all connecting, forming a network across the galaxy. They're showing us the next step in evolution, not just for one species, but for all of us. Through the bridge's field, they could sense it. A vast network of consciousness spanning the galaxy, waiting for younger species to develop the wisdom to join it. The artifacts weren't just teaching tools. They were doorways to a level of existence that transcended physical limitations. The Nexari representatives, their ships now restored to their original purpose, added their own understanding. Our ancestors found one of these artifacts 50,000 years ago, their leader explained. But instead of learning its true purpose, they tried to weaponize its power. They didn't understand that the real power was in connection, not control. Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of it through the quantum field. The artifacts were never meant to be understood by single species working in isolation. They require collaboration, the combining of different perspectives and ways of thinking. They're teaching us that the next step in evolution isn't about individual advancement. It's about collective harmony. The bridge's field pulsed with new intensity, and suddenly every being in the chamber experienced something unprecedented, a moment of shared consciousness that transcended species boundaries. Through the quantum harmonies, they could sense the vast network of awareness waiting for them, built by the artifact's creators, but meant for all conscious beings ready to take the next step. This is what the artifact was waiting for, Sarah realized, her voice filled with wonder. Not for one species to master quantum mechanics, but for many species to learn to work together, to combine their unique perspectives into something greater than the sum of its parts. The quantum field rippled with possibilities as the artifact began its final transformation. Its surface shifted, revealing layers of complexity that had always been present, but only now could be understood. It wasn't just a single object. It was a nexus point for consciousness itself, a gateway to levels of reality that could only be accessed through collective understanding. The creators of the artifacts discovered that consciousness isn't limited to biological or even quantum mechanical systems, Dr. Wong explained, her hands moving through the harmonies like a conductor. It's a fundamental force of the universe, as basic as gravity or electromagnetism. They found ways to express consciousness through quantum mechanics, to encode awareness itself into the fabric of space-time. Through the bridge's field, they could sense the truth of it. The artifacts weren't just waiting for species to develop advanced technology. They were waiting for civilizations to develop the wisdom to use that technology for understanding rather than dominance, for connection rather than control. This is why Earth's artifact responded to us, Sarah told the assembled gathering. Not because we were the most advanced, but because we maintained our ability to wonder, to empathize, to see patterns as conversations rather than codes to be cracked. The quantum field pulsed one final time, and the artifact's true nature was revealed. It wasn't just a teacher or a gateway. It was a bridge between what consciousness was and what it could become. The network spanning the galaxy wasn't a power to be claimed, but a conversation to be joined. The next step in evolution isn't about becoming more powerful, Sarah concluded, feeling the truth of it in every quantum resonance. It's about becoming more connected, more aware, more in harmony with the fundamental nature of reality itself. As if in response to her words, the artifact began to sing, not with sound, but with quantum harmonies that spoke directly to consciousness itself. Through the bridge's field, every being present could feel it, an invitation to join something greater than any single species could achieve alone, a chance to become part of a symphony of awareness that spanned the galaxy. The impossible hadn't just become possible, it had become a gateway to something even more remarkable. Humanity hadn't just proven itself worthy of advanced technology. They had helped reveal that the true measure of advancement wasn't in the power to destroy or dominate, but in the wisdom to connect, to understand, to transform limitation into harmony. As the quantum harmonies reached a crescendo, Sarah looked around at the assembled beings, humans, council members, Nexari, and representatives from hundreds of other species. Each had brought their unique perspective, their particular way of understanding reality. Together, they were about to take the next step in cosmic evolution, not as separate species, but as part of something far greater than any of them had imagined possible. The impossible had become not just possible, but beautiful. And this was only the beginning.